Continuing with the instructions of Lord Kapila in the matter of execution of devotional service. So many points in the series of these verses we are seeing. So here in today's verse we see yet another 5 important points to be considered in execution of devotional service. Let us see one by one. The first one, Adhyatmika Anushravanat. Adhyatmika Anushravanat, meaning one should hear from authentic sources how to advance in spiritual life. This is very important. Adhyatmika Anushravanat. We have to hear things which are beyond our senses. Leave about things that are beyond our senses. Even in the material world, we don't have sufficient power. Our senses are imperfect. We don't have sufficient time. Everything I'll try to understand by my own sense perception, by my own experience. No, this is not the way. Spiritual matters, we hear. Adhyatmika Anushravanat. From whom to hear? From authentic sources. One should hear from authentic sources how to advance in spiritual life, and then such instructions should be taken from the Acharya and should be assimilated. So that's why we hear from the Acharya, from the spiritual master. And here Prabhupada says such instructions should be assimilated. Assimilated meaning, the dictionary meaning is taking in and understand fully. So we can recollect how in the Bhagavatam, in the beginning, in the first chapter itself, how the sages who had assembled in the Naimisharanya forest, they request Suta Goswami to address them. They ask various questions to Suta Goswami. Why they selected Suta Goswami? They describe the glories of Suta Goswami. There they say how Suta Goswami had heard from his spiritual master. He has read all the itihasas, the Puranas, the histories, everything, and he had explained it to others. Akhyatani api adhitani dharma shastrani. All the dharma shastras, itihasas, Puranas, everything Suta Goswami had adhitani. Adhitani means he had read, and akhyatani, he had explained it to others. There in the purport Srila Prabhupada mentions how Suta Goswami had assimilated the knowledge. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. Again I repeat, to hear and explain them is more important than simply reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. This is very important. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. So this is how the knowledge contained in the Vedic literatures a devotee will be able to assimilate by hearing and explaining. That's why Srila Prabhupada says how in our organization, in our movement, preaching is the essence. A devotee hears from the spiritual master and he explains. Through this, assimilation of knowledge happens. So this is the first point. Adhyatmika Anushravanat. Let us move on to the second one. Nama Sankirtana Chame. Nama Sankirtana Chame. Chanting my holy names, Lord Kapila is telling. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, we have to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, either individually or collectively. So devotees individually we chant our japa, minimum 16 rounds of this Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, and then collectively we perform Sankirtana. All devotees put together, we chant the holy names of the Lord. So here, one more point Srila Prabhupada says how Lord Chaitanya has given special stress to chanting of these holy names of the Lord as the basic principle of spiritual advancement. So we are seeing many big list of many things in the matter of execution of devotional service by Lord Kapila. Among all of them, chanting of the holy names of the Supreme Lord is most important, especially in this age, the Kali Yuga. This is the basic principle of spiritual advancement. A person may say, I may not be able to chant attentively. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in one place, how still you chant. I am unable to come to temple and render services. No problem, still they can chant. I am unable to follow the regulative principles properly. Still you chant. I am not able to, maybe I don't know reading, I can't read the books, understand Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, philosophy. No problem, still you chant. So this is how the instructions are given. So this chanting is the most important anga in our devotional practices. So this is what through various verses from the Vedic literatures we understand. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Kalikalik Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtana Krishna Shakti Vina Nahetara Pravartana. So in this Kali Yuga, Kalikale Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtana. The Dharma or the Yuga Dharma in this Kali Yuga is chanting the holy names of the Lord. And then it is said, Kriteya Dhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Yajato Makhai Dvapare Paricharyayam Kalau Tad Hari Kirtanat. All the benefits a devotee will reap, what a person used to perform by doing meditation in Satya Yuga, by performing various sacrifices in the Treta Yuga and temple worship in Dvapara Yuga. All the benefits a devotee will be able to reap just by chanting the holy names of the Lord in Kali Yuga. Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam, Kalau Nasti Eva Gatiranyatha. So in this age of Kali, this is the only means. Nasti Eva Gatiranyatha, there is no other means. So this is how we can go on speaking about chanting, like say chanting, hearing. Lot of stress is being given that we need to understand. In fact, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after he heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became a devotee. Earlier he was an impersonalist, he became a devotee, and then lot of enquiries he makes from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of his questions was, what is the most important thing in rendering devotional service? So Mahaprabhu says, chanting the holy names of the Lord. This is the most important. So through all of these things we understand the importance of this specific point. Nama Sankirtana Chame, chanting the holy names of the Lord as the basic principle of spiritual advancement. We'll move on to the next one, the third. Arjavena Adhyatmika Anushravanat Nama Sankirtanat Chame. Then Arjavena means with straightforward behavior, without duplicity, being transparent. So this is Arjava, one of the Brahmanical qualifications. Simplicity, straightforwardness, without duplicity or diplomacy. Prabhupada says, so a devotee should not make plans out of self-interest. So for self-interest or whatever, making too big plans, being diplomatic, no, not at all accepted. That's not a behavior of a devotee. But another point Srila Prabhupada mentions, of course, preachers sometimes have to make some plan to execute the mission of the Lord under proper guidance. But regarding personal self-interest, a devotee should always be without diplomacy. For personal self-interest, no diplomacy or being cunning or in whatever other ways. A devotee should be simple and straightforward. As mentioned here, just like some cases, how for expanding the Krishna conscious activities, especially in temple, we see how various we may be having a lot of some fun generating activities, businesses and all. In the name of straightforwardness and being simple, a devotee may not reveal some trade secrets or some formula, all these things to outsiders. So in that way, devotees with some responsible position or some specific services for the service of the Lord, for furthering the mission of the Lord, they may use this as a weapon. But also that needs to be done. How that needs to be done? Prabhupada says, to make some plan to execute the mission of the Lord under proper guidance. Preachers sometimes they may have to use diplomacy, but otherwise regarding personal self-interest, the devotee should be without diplomacy. So as simple devotees, being straightforward, simple in our dealings, being transparent in our dealings, this is what is recommended. Then this is Arjava. Then moving forward, Arya Sangena, Arjavena, Arya Sangena. Aryans are persons who are advancing in knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So we need to associate with devotees. So sufficiently we have heard whom to associate with, whom not to associate with. Devotees doing devotional service under different modes, even in Tamoguna, Rajoguna, Sattvaguna, all of those things. So as sadhakas, we should be aware, alert, whom we are associating with. So here, Arya Sangena, Aryans are persons who are advancing in knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So we need to associate with devotees who are advancing in Krishna consciousness in their spiritual life. He should avoid the company of persons who are not advancing in spiritual life. We should avoid consciously. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Asat Sangatyaga E Vaishnava Acharya. Another important consideration. Asat means something temporary, or asat means anything material acquisitions, material enjoyment. All of these things a devotee should be away from. Even he should be away from a person who is too attached to these things. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport how Lord Chaitanya advised Asat Sangatyaga, who is too attached to women or enjoyable material things. Such a person, according to Vaishnava philosophy, is a persona non grata. So it's a Greek phrase, persona non grata, meaning an unacceptable person, or say an unwelcomed person. Such a person is unwelcome. He is too much attached to material sense objects, too much attached to money, or especially a man attached to a woman just for the sake of sense gratification. Such a person, his company should be avoided. He is unwelcomed in the association or in the community of devotees. Same instruction Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to, like how in the case of Mahaprabhu was persuaded to meet the king Prataparudra by Ramananda Raya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So in different varieties of ways they were trying to fix an appointment and help Maharaja Prataparudra meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was rejecting this offer. No, I cannot meet the king, because a king means he'll all be surrounded with all kinds of material, sense enjoyable objects and women and all of these things. I cannot meet such a person. So he says, very beautiful verse is there, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanonmukhasya Paramparam Jigimishor Bhavasagarasya Sandarshanam Vishayinam Athayoshitamcha Ha Hanta Hanta Vishabhakshanato Api Asadhu. For a person, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanonmukhasya, a person who has given up all unwanted things for the sake of rendering devotional service to the Lord, and who is interested, param jigimishor, to jump over, to cross over this material ocean and go back to Godhead. For such a person, sandarshanam vishayinam athayoshitam cha, even associating with a person who is attached to all kinds of material sense objects, a man attached to woman, a woman attached to man for sense gratification, even associating with such people is very, very detrimental. It is more detrimental than consuming poison. His devotional service, his devotional life will be spoiled. So these are the instructions given which we need to remember. Arya Sangena, associate with people who are advancing in spiritual life. And then the last one, Nirahang Kriyaya Tatha. Nirahang Kriyaya. A devotee should not be proud of his acquisitions. Even as devotees, a lot of acquisitions. One thing based on our previous karma, based on service requirements, whatever varieties of things a devotee may possess. He should not become attached to all of these positions and possessions regarding to, say, one's knowledge, talent, abilities. So all these things compared to others, one devotee may be having more, another devotee may be having less. So all these varieties we see in the community of devotees. But a devotee should never be proud of whatever he has. This pride, when does it come? It comes when we compare with others. We compare with others. If at all we have something lesser than the other devotee, we become envious. We have something more than the other person, other devotee, we become proud. Both are detrimental for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So devotee should be niraham kriyaya. He should be free from pride, should not be proud of his acquisitions. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that one should be humbler than the grass on the street and more tolerant than a tree. One should not be proud or falsely puffed up. In this way, one will surely advance in spiritual life. So this is the sure and guaranteed way of advancing in spiritual life. What is that? Remain humbler than a blade of grass, be tolerant more than a tree, and be ready to offer all respect to others and do not expect any respect for oneself. In this condition, chant the holy names of the Supreme Lord. So this is a guaranteed way of success in our spiritual life. The symptoms of a devotee are meekness and humility. Although spiritually very advanced, he will always remain meek and humble. A devotee is always meek and humble. As Kaviraja Goswami and all other Vaishnavas have taught us by personal example. So Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami, about how his humility we hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the other Goswamis, great Vaishnava Acharyas, they have all shown by their personal example how to remain humble, how to render devotional service, all of these things. So, before we end, one example, one personal example of a devotee we'll take up, mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, and try to understand how the principles, what we have heard through maybe previous 5 verses in the matter of execution of devotional services, Lord Kapila telling how devotees have applied in their personal life. We can see the whatever similarities. If we see how the things mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavana, and very beautifully how he executed his devotional service, his qualities, wonderfully it is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami applied in his life the teachings what we are seeing now as explained by Lord Kapila. Let us see. So Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, he is the son of another great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Tapana Mishra, who was residing in Varanasi, Benares. So even he was a very learned scholar, and he, after his studies, he gave up all of his material duties and traveled to Jagannath Puri to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he came to Jagannath Puri, and as soon as he arrived, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recognized him. Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami offered his obeisances. Mahaprabhu lifted him and embraced him, introduced to all other devotees who he was, and he said, okay, now you go take bath and go take darshan of Lord Jagannatha in the temple and come back here. Today you will be having prasadam along with me. So then after that, so Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, he stayed there in Jagannath Puri for 8 continuous months. So during those 8 months, occasionally Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami used to cook and invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to honor, take prasadam. He used to give bhiksha to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to relish because he was an expert cook. Very wonderfully he used to cook, and whatever he cooked used to be nectarian, and Mahaprabhu used to relish that. And after Mahaprabhu took that, the remnants, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami used to accept that. And he used to chant every verse of Bhagavatam in 3 different tunes. and Mahaprabhu was very happy hearing them. So likewise, like this, he stayed in Jagannath Puri for 8 months. So after 8 months, Mahaprabhu sent him, now you go back to Varanasi, your aged parents are there, you go take care of them. So continuously you chant this Hare Krishna mantra, read Bhagavatam under the guidance of a advanced devotee, and you take care of your parents, and he sent him back. So Raghunath Bhatta Goswami went back to Varanasi, and he stayed there along with his parents and followed the instructions of Mahaprabhu of chanting and reading Bhagavatam. And meanwhile, in due course of time, both his parents passed away. So now no one else is there. Again he came back to Jagannath Puri. So again he stayed yet another 8 months. He stayed in Jagannath Puri, and a lot of instructions he took from Mahaprabhu, served him. And then finally Mahaprabhu says, after 8 months, he says, now you go to Vrindavan. You take shelter of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami there, and you reside there. So this is how Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami came to Vrindavan, and the rest of his life he stayed along with Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So now, another instruction Mahaprabhu gave while going, specifically to Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, do not get married, you remain brahmachari. So there, in 5 verses, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains the devotional service of Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami. Quickly I will be reading. Krishnera saundarya madhurya yabe pade shune premete vihvala tabe kichui na jane. When he recited or heard about the beauty and sweetness of Krishna, he would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love and become oblivious to everything. Whenever Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami heard about Krishna, Krishna's qualities, immediately he used to become oblivious to anything outside. He used to become ecstatic. If we see here, just few verses behind, Kapila Muni says, Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avichinna Yata Gangam Vasom Budho. Just like how the Ganges continuously flows towards the sea, undeviatingly. Likewise, when a devotee just hears about the Supreme Lord, His quality, His names, his mind, whatever, he becomes attracted towards that. So that we see how in the case of Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami. Then, Govinda Charade Kaila Atma Samarpana Govinda Charanaravinda Yara Pranadhana. Thus, Raghunatha Bhatta surrendered fully at the lotus feet of Lord Govinda, and those lotus feet became his life and soul. So Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, how much fully surrendered devotee at the feet of Lord Govinda. So likewise, we see another verse of Kapila Muni, wherein he says, Salokya Sarshti Samipya Sarupyaikatvam Diyamanam Nagrhananti Vina Matsevanam Janaha. Even if a devotee is offered Salokya, Samipya, Sarshti, different kinds of liberation, he is not interested in that. He is simply interested in rendering devotional service at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, wherever, in whatever condition he be. So that's what we see in the case of Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami. And then, Nija Shishya Kahi Govindera Mandira Karaila Vamshi Makara Kundaladi Bhushana Karidila. Subsequently, Raghunatha Bhatta ordered his disciples to construct a temple for Govinda. He prepared various ornaments for Govinda, including a flute and shark-shaped earrings. So, how we see in Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami in the previous verse. Madhishnya darshana sparsha puja stuti abhivandanai Bhuteshu madbhavanaya satvena asangamena cha. The devotee should madhishya, the deity form of the Lord in the temple. He engages himself in the worship of that. Puja, arhana, stuti, abhivandana, all of these things. So we see how even the Goswamis, they constructed temples. Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, he constructed temple for Lord Govinda. And there how the specific of how he offered, he prepared various ornaments for Govinda, including a flute, vamshi, and makara, kundala, adi, bhushana, nice dresses, nice shark-shaped earrings, all of these things he had offered to the deity of Govindaji in Vrindavan. So now also devotees for Janmashtami, they are going for Vastra, Varana Seva and varieties of sevas. So this is so important. Any person who offers these simple things to the Lord, these are all following the footsteps of great acharyas. So Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami did this. And then, Gramya Vartha na shune na kahe jihvaya Krishna katha puja dite ashta praharayaya. Raghunatha Bhatta would neither hear nor speak about anything of the material world. He would simply discuss Krishna and worship the Lord day and night. So same thing Kapila Muni telling, Nishevitena animittena swadharmena mahiyasa kriyayogena shastena nati himsena nityashaha. Always, continuously engaged in the service of the Lord. Nishevitena, to execute devotional service, kriyayogena, all of these. Day and night, how Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami was engaged in the service of the Lord. And then last one, Vaishnavera nindya karma nahi pade kane sabe Krishna bhajana kare e matra jane. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnava's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. He just saw how everyone engaged in Krishna's service and nothing else. So this is how Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami executed devotional service. And these are the instructions we see how Lord Kapila giving in the matter of execution of devotional service. All of these considerations a devotee should keep in mind when it comes to practically rendering devotional service to the Lord. We'll conclude with this. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.